Previously on Donkey Kong Country.
No, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah!
And now a Winter Wonderland. Hello everybody! CSF Watson back here again, and welcome to another episode of Retro Replay. Last time we cleared World 3, now we're on to the snow world of World 4. This entire world is going to make me eat my words about how I was complaining about how all the earlier levels looked so much alike and there was not enough variety. As we get ready to try and get our next Winky emblem, we have arrived in the snow world, and all of the wonky ice physics that get to come along for the ride. Hooray! This is nothing new though, just about every game I can think of even before this one have done ice physics, so we get to play around in the Winter Wonderland. And more barrels, I guess. Growing up in Ohio meant that every year during late fall, most of winter, and sometimes spring, I would get to see snow. Heck, sometimes I've had snow in the first week of April when it's almost time for spring to really be in full swing. That's always been annoying. Every once in a while I'll see those stories about people who grew up only in warm climate areas or different parts of the world that never get snow at all, experience snow for the first time, and that always seems strange to me. I was always used to snow when I was little, so whenever it happened I wasn't like, what's this, or like, have I never seen this before? It was just, oh, it's wintertime. It's time for snow, I guess. Oop, there goes a death. Another one to add to the tally. Let's get back to this point again and keep moving forward. I always thought that snow was just a commonplace everywhere in the world. I wasn't even aware of, oh, certain climates don't get snow when I was really little. We never really traveled anywhere warm for the holidays, so I was always used to snow around the same time of year everywhere I went. Be it going to Toledo to visit my Grammy and Papa Wally, or visit Colorado to visit my Nana and Grandpa. I don't believe we ever had any really big blizzard-esque snows when we visited my Grammy and Papa Wally in Toledo, but sometimes when we did visit Colorado during the wintertime, we had some pretty big snows. There were a few trips where we would go to the hill near the school where my grandparents lived and sled down it. That was always a lot of fun. It wasn't quite the same as the sledding hill I slid on back home, but it was still a lot of fun. I was just happy to be in the mountains visiting family. Cool, we got another Rambi emblem. We're gonna get some more extra lives. Moving on! In terms of Colorado though, I've only actually skied there twice. Maybe 3 times. Which is kind of a bummer. I'd love to ski in the mountains again. The most I've skied is back in Ohio. There were a few places that found large enough hills to sort of compensate for the fact of no mountains here in Ohio. And it's where I kinda sorta learned how to ski. I'm not super great at it and I haven't done it in years. But I would definitely love to pick it back up again and maybe visit the mountains again. Oh! Alright, I guess we're gonna have to try that again. Like I was saying though, there were a few places in Ohio that had tall enough hills that could emulate skiing, but not necessarily something akin to the mountains. I remember the double black diamonds that they had at the one place I frequented the most would probably be considered a blue at best in Colorado. I'd have to look at a picture again to confirm this, but I remember the last time I was in Colorado, I was skiing at a place called Monarch. It's right by the Continental Divide. It's really beautiful. By the parking lot, there was, I believe, either a black or a double black just by the parking lot that you could see, and it looked like it was just a sheer cliff almost. Like, holy Hannah, how the flip do people stay upright going down that thing? We only did 2 unique trails when we went that trip, and they were both greens, so it wasn't exactly a wide exploration trip. We wanted to go up to the top of the mountain and see the Continental Divide from the top, but it was like really gray and cloudy that day, so if we did, we wouldn't be seeing that much. We could have gotten down. There are a few green trails up at the top of the mountain that we would have taken, but that is something that I hope to do sometime in the future, now that I'm older and a bit better at skiing. Granted, I have to warm up again first, but that's neither here nor there. And then, like I said, most of my skiing experience after that was back in Ohio. I did 1 year of ski club at my private school before I moved to public, and then I did 1 or 2 years of ski club after that. Or maybe it was the inverse, 2 years at the private, 1 at public. I think I wanted to do ski club in high school, but high school homework required a lot more time and dedication from me compared to middle school, so I had to drop ski club and focus more on my studies. It was a bummer, but it needed to be done. Bringing this back around to my initial discussion about snow, even though Ohio can get snow, it doesn't always. There was one day when I was in college at Bowling Green and it was absolutely frigid. darn near below zero. I think it actually did get below zero because Bowling Green actually canceled classes because they didn't want students driving through this cold weather or the students who lived on campus to walk through it. And even then, there was next to no snow during that day. So Ohio might be able to meet the temperature requirements, but they might not always get standing snow. So the ski places here in Ohio would make man-made snow. You could definitely tell the difference if you skied on natural snow versus man-made snow, but it was still a good opportunity to learn how to properly ski, even if it wasn't necessarily the best of conditions, all things considered. But of course, Ohio is a case of multiple extremes. Not necessarily just, oh, we got barely any snow with these frigid temperatures. There were some years where we got absolute mammoth amounts of snow. Back in 2008, there was a massive snowstorm that went through the area and ended up giving us the largest amount of snowfall that I have ever personally seen in Ohio. Well then, let's try again. Stupid bees. Alright, maybe third time's the charm? Nope. Alright, Fantastic Four, here we go. Alright, where was I? Ah, yes, massive snowfall. I believe it was the winter of 2008, because Super Smash Bros. Brawl was just about to come out, and the entire city of Worthington was just completely and utterly covered with snow. This was back when I was in 6th grade, so I wasn't quite to my full height yet, and the snow came up, I want to say, pretty close to my gut. It was absolutely insane. Falling down in that much snow felt like I was gonna be stuck in there for a while. I even remember the time I did fall in. Normally when you fall in snow, it's just like, oh, haha, it's a bit of a poof, then you get up. But this was just like, I fell into the snow and then I just kinda sorta stayed there. It required a lot more effort than I was used to get out of that much snow. It was pretty crazy. One of our neighbors had a little small snowplow that they set up on their ATV, and they would sometimes go through and dig people out of their driveways if they needed to get to work on some mornings, but this was so bad he had a hard time even trying to do that. It was pretty much nothing but snow though. It wasn't any like snow and ice combination or anything that would have made snowplows difficult to get access to the main roads. I'm Hans Gruber! And with that complete lapse in judgment, we're back. As far as I'm aware, the worst that I've ever seen Ohio get hit with a snowstorm like that was probably the most recent storm we got back in December of 2022. And even then, I was out in Pittsburgh visiting family for the holidays, and while the cold snap out in Pittsburgh was as bad as it was in Columbus, we even had a pipe freeze, the snow didn't hit Pittsburgh nearly as bad as it did in Columbus. When I left Pittsburgh the day after Christmas, the roads leading out of Pittsburgh and into West Virginia and eastern Ohio weren't terrible, but then compared to I got closer to the city of Columbus, it got worse and worse. And the craziest thing throughout all of that, somehow my apartment never lost power. I wasn't there obviously, but normally whenever I lose power, I get an email from my electric company saying, hey, we've got a reportage of outage in your area. We will resolve this issue as quickly as possible. The entire winter storm didn't knock out my power, but a few weeks later I was just hanging out, working from home. It was a fairly gross morning, a lot of rain with thunderstorms in the mix, and it was not very pleasant out the window. But throughout it all, I kept my power. The hours passed, the storms rolled away, the rain stopped, and then maybe 2 hours removed from the last time I heard lightning strike or saw a serious rainfall, my power went out. I don't know why, it was so bizarre. I would compare my electrical reliability to these moves right here. I can avoid the major enemies and the major storms, but simple things, oh my goodness, I have failed. Be it a day that's around maybe 80 degrees at best on a summer day, or just a mediocre winter day where no storms have hit the area for quite some time, my power might sometimes go out because it feels like it. The electrical grid has a simple job. Its objectives are right there, and it completely misses the mark. It made a lot more sense in my childhood home. If the power went out, it was usually because something crazy had happened. We're just rolling along, minding our own darn business, and then all of a sudden, when things seem like they're going well, a big storm will pop up, and then bada bing, bada boom, we're like, we lost power. The worst power outage my family and I ever had to wait through, though, was a week. It was Hurricane Ike back in 2008. After it had ravaged the south, it kept enough momentum to reach the north, and we got hit with heavy winds and rain. It knocked down just about every darn tree limb it could in my neighborhood. I remember the morning after, in our backyard, it was just like tree limbs as far as the eye could see everywhere. There was also a really scary moment as the storm was hitting and tree limbs were falling left and right. My folks were out in the backyard trying to make sure like things didn't blow away, things didn't get broken, and that the house would be able to stay safe to a degree, as well as the cars. But I also remember that day, me and my brother were looking out the back door window. We're looking out towards our driveway and a little fence we had between the driveway and our little patio, and a massive limb just fell out of the tree and landed on the fence. I think our folks were close to it. Thankfully, they were nowhere in range of actually getting hit by the thing, but it was one of those moments where you see it and you're just like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? I can't remember if we had lost power before or after I had gone to bed, but I'm going to assume before, because with how many limbs were falling and how bad that storm was hitting, it'd be a shock if we actually had power for a few hours after that. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we were without power for a week. Our power grid at my childhood home was kind of weird. My side of the street would get power back usually later than the other side of the street because both sides were connected to different power grids. We lived on a cul-de-sac, so the flow of power was very different on both sides. The main reason I bring this up, like I mentioned, I was without power for a week, but the other side of our street got power back about 3 or 4 days after the initial storm, which was roughly around the same time that our school decided to let us back in for classes. My brother and I were bummed out because since we still didn't have power, we were like, well, what the flip are we doing? Like, we don't have power, why do we have to go back to school? We were little, so that was our main prerogative, staying home and doing nothing. I even remember that week the Speed Racer Blu-ray and DVD finally came out, and since we didn't have power, we just watched it on what battery our portable DVD player had left. Other than that 1 week though, we never had a power outage that lasted any more than 3 days, and that was the absolute worst. It was usually a few hours or at worst a day, or overnight. There was one year where we had a power outage right before Christmas, and since it was cold around that time of year, we initially planned on spending the night at a hotel. We had gotten into the car, drove over to the hotel, they still had power, and just as we had checked into our room to spend the night, we got a text from one of our neighbors saying, hey, the power's back on. And we literally sheepishly walked back to the concierge saying like, yeah, so our power came back, can we cancel? Thankfully the guy was gracious enough to say like, yeah, sure, go right ahead, sorry about that, glad your power's back. My memories insist that this was on Christmas Eve, but my folks are saying, no, it was before then. The primary reason I believe it was on Christmas Eve was because I have a memory that I had just bought this goofy little sensor spy toy, and I was going to use it to catch, quote-unquote, Santa Claus. I was really little at the time, keep in mind, and my family never really did Santa. We never did letters to Santa, we never did what do you want for Christmas. We just said like, oh, we got gifts for everybody, we gave everything, and oh, here's a little Santa gift, oh ho ho. And the reason I bring that up was because that's why I believe the memory was on Christmas Eve, because I believe I had the sensors with me in the hotel because I was convinced that I was either going to catch either the totally real Santa Claus or catch my once and for all, truly, it was my parents, there is no Santa Claus. But we got our power back, I set up the motion sensors in our house, and my parents and grandparents decided to just play along with it and let me catch them while they were wearing goofy outfits because they knew that was the best way to get me to go to bed. They even made a really funny joke. They had these little bags of Santa's coal chewing gum that they said like, oh, that's what the bad kids get when they discover that Santa isn't real. It was pretty funny. And it kind of makes me glad that they did so too. I see so many stories about all these parents who have kids and they do all these elaborate schemes to try and say like, Santa's totally real, he left footprints with the snow last night. I heard tapping on the rooftops, even though it was the parents just running around. Land alive, that was a tangent and a half. How am I already through 4 levels? Oh, then I guess we get to move on to another cavern level. Don't worry, I won't talk about it too long. This is the only one, maybe one of 2, that has this specific animal companion that gives you a light. But other than that, it's just the similar level, just cavern. For as diverse as this world is, this is the one level I think that kinda keeps it samey. Not counting the water level, of course. I kinda like the idea that the light is able to illuminate to make things a bit clearer, but it doesn't completely obstruct your view. It's not pitch black when you play through the level, it's just, oh, this makes things clearer. I think enemies are hidden in the dark, but you can generally see where you're going. I'm trying to think, I don't think I've ever been in a place that has been that dark. Not even the service tunnels beneath Bowling Green. When I was a sophomore, I worked on a 48-hour film set where we snuck into the service tunnels beneath the campus and just sort of went around filming stuff. For the most part, just about every corner had electrical lighting going through it. It does make sense. If you're going to have a ton of service pipes running below the campus itself, you're probably going to want enough light to make sure that you can actually see the service pipes that you're going to fix or take care of if need be. I was just surprised that the lights were on when we went at like 2 in the morning. And since it was fluorescent lights, it was pretty well lit. Lit enough that even I could make a jump like that if I paid attention. The lights were fluorescent, so we were able to film without having to use film lights because it was enough general lighting that we could film for the most part. We did actually find one corridor that was completely pitch black. All the lights were off for that one. And I think we had a small portable light that we used for filming in that scene because our director really wanted to film down there. It did create a bit of a weird juxtaposition though. The light is on the main character even though it's clearly dark. And then we had a moment where myself and the director voiced these characters who were supposed to be workers down there in post-production. Where it's like, is anyone down there? Hello? And the camera moves to sort of signify the tension. But because of that, the light travels with the camera and creates a bit of a wonky visual. We're following this character on their mission, and then all of a sudden, boom, a searchlight goes down this dark hallway. Although granted, our director was very much into that more realistic world setting. He made a lot of movies that were more based in reality. He did a couple of World War II movies, even won a festival with one of them. He didn't have that many production lights, nor did he try to rent any from the equipment room in the film building. And none of the other 48s I ever did went to the film equipment room to get equipment for a 48. I think a few kids did, but it was few and far between. And mostly it was the kids who already worked there. But getting back to the general conversation about darkness, that was a interesting film set. The only other time I can think of where it was actively dark on purpose for a film set, it was a film we never finished. We were trying to make a horror film about a banshee, and during one of the scenes, I played a random business person who got killed by the banshee. I had two particular scenes as that character. The first one was where obviously I'm running away and then I get killed. The second one was my body is supposed to be dead and discovered by the detectives and police, and I'm just lying there waiting for my body to be taken away. While it was dark, we did have a street lamp to at least help light the scene when we filmed the night scene. But earlier in the day when I played my dead body, instead of getting a mannequin or like just having something prop up a little shower curtain, I lay on the solid concrete for about an hour perfectly still, wearing a shower curtain covered in fake blood all over me. Oh, and the fake blood wasn't on top of the shower curtain, no. It was on the inside of the shower curtain so that it looked more realistic, so it was getting stuck on me. I almost darn near stained one of my shirts, but thankfully we were able to clean it up. And given all that talk about movies, Hollywood loves their pointless sequels, it's time for really naughty. Being a repeat boss, do you want to know what makes him stand out? He jumps really high this time. He doesn't just jump forward a little bit, he makes a big jump. He's a big boy. For a while I thought, like, why didn't they use a snow creature for the boss? But then I thought, well, there weren't really any snow creatures in this level. It was all enemies we had already fought before, just with a snow background this time. But with that, we have conquered the snowy fields of World 4. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until the next episode of Retro Replay, this has been CSF Watson, and I will see you guys next time.